Amidst mounting shipping delays and safety concerns for staff, Ports of Auckland bosses have today faced a grilling from Auckland Council. There are 5 ships waiting in the Hauraki Gulf at the moment to be processed. On average, ships are waiting 8 days to have their goods offloaded. That's causing major supply chain issues with increased demand before Christmas only adding to the problem. Today, the Port's chief executive made a scheduled appearance before some frustrated councillors. Our reporter Blake-Persen was at the meeting and she joins us now. Nita, what did the ports have to say about how their performance is going this year?
Well, it wasn't good. Today we were hearing from Chief Executive Tony Gibson. This is the first time we've heard from him, despite Checkpoint repeatedly requesting it. But the Ports of Auckland are owned by Auckland Council, so he did have to front to them today. This was the first time he'd publicly addressed those issues they're having and described it as a year of real challenges and put that down to COVID. Obviously, the virus has had huge impacts on shipping routes, schedules, safety, quarantine. No part of the supply chain has been unaffected. And New Zealand's not immune to that. In fact, often those things are compounded by the time the boats get down here. But basically, Mr Gibson said the problem at this time is the unprecedented boom in demand. He did concede, however, and we've spoken a lot about this on Checkpoint, that their own automation system rollout has added to the problems. He said they've learnt some lessons and they have been harsh lessons.
So what were the council's concerns?
Well, it was a pretty tense mood there today, it would be fair to say. Safety and delays were the key concerns to councillors. As I mentioned, the council owns the port, but these issues go far further than Auckland. A lot of people and companies across the companies waiting for stock at the moment. Pretty frustrating to see those boats out there in the Hauraki Gulf with things out there that people just can't get their hands on. So Mayor Phil Goff was one of the councillors wanting to know whether all of these issues are down to COVID or whether the port's own behaviour was part of that. Here's his question to them.
If we were to compare the number of containers we were unloading on average each day at the current time, or say over the last month, with the same time last year, are we unloading more or less containers?
No, Mayor, we're actually loading less containers, but so less number of vessels, but much bigger exchanges, which puts pressure on the workforce. And of course the capability, and again, it's related to very high yard utilisation. And had we had the automation in place now, we could have coped with the additional cargoes.
So again, that's back to the automation, the shift from manual use of cranes and things to some automation ones. It hasn't gone as smoothly as they had hoped. There also weren't any clear signs that these delays are going to get better anytime soon. The port basically expects things to be going slowly well into the new year. Something that was quite interesting that came through today, a letter that the Ministry of Transport had written to one of the councillors describing a government kind of review of sorts across several key ministries has been launched into how these the delays facing ships are actually happening and whether there's anything that can be done to improve that. So there is some work being done by the government looking at what's going on here.
Did the port mention staffing issues?
That repeatedly came up, that staffing was a problem, but some more staff are on the way, but again, no silver bullet there.
Okay, so safety is also something that people are questioning. I mean, you yourself were in sentencing the other day involving the Ports of Auckland, so what questions were asked about safety?
Yeah, and councillors were well aware of that case. We reported on it last week. A young father who died when his straddle tipped over. So people quite concerned, councillors today, that rhetoric from the ports that they're taking action on safety isn't actually matching up with what's happening. There was another death there this year. So Mr Goff again asked about safety culture, and Tony Gibson tried to say he wanted to have that conversation offline. Mr Goff did push him on that, and here's how that played out.
We've got in our statement of intent, a safe and empowered people. But what this report shows is that we fell hugely short of that. Now, I don't expect you to touch on things that are inappropriate to talk about in public, but I need to know, and I think everybody around this table needs to know, why there was a culture of disregard of safety rules and why that wasn't properly monitored and enforced. I think that is in the public interest to know.
I think, first of all, we accept that we didn't play a part in making sure that that young man went home safely. We, as you would have seen from the press statement we made last week, there were gaps in training. There were gaps in following up on tips alarm. And all I can say is that subsequent to that accident, which was very sad, we've got strict protocols in place around those very things. And what we have tried to do is also put front cameras and cameras facing in the cab to ensure that we can monitor that drivers are handling the straddle carrier in a safe way.
So Tony Gibson did say that productivity would never overshadow people getting home safely at night, and that was something they are still working on, safety at the ports. And there's a review underway by Auckland Council into a number of deaths connected to the ports in recent years. The first draft of that is due to be completed before Christmas, with the final report by February. So there may be more answers in there.
Thanks, Nita. Nita Blake-Persen.